Traveling for Vacations. Chapter 1. The Dream of Escape. Sarah had always been the kind of person who dreamed of faraway places, the untouched beaches, the hidden mountain trails, the old cobbled streets of ancient cities, the daily grind of work, the constant hum of city life, and the never-ending rush were starting to feel suffocating. Her phone buzzed on her desk, but it was just another email about work deadlines. She sighed. "I need a vacation," she muttered to herself, but where? For days, she flipped through travel magazines, scrolled through endless Instagram feeds, and stared longingly at travel blogs. One evening, as she was sipping on her coffee, an idea hit her. She would go to Italy. The history, the art, the culture, it seemed like the perfect escape. And so, with a newfound sense of purpose, she began planning. Chapter 2. The excitement of planning. The excitement of planning a trip was almost as thrilling as the trip itself. Sarah spent hours on travel websites, comparing flights and reading reviews of accommodations. She decided on Rome as her first destination. There was something so alluring about the ancient ruins, the architecture, and the prospect of sipping espresso at a quaint cafe while people watching. She also began researching other spots in Italy, Florence, Venice, the Amalfi Coast. Each place seemed more magical than the last. Sarah made a mental note to include at least one day for spontaneous exploration. She booked her flights, packed her bags, and took a deep breath. This would be the vacation of a lifetime. Chapter 3. The journey begins. The day had arrived. Sarah stood at the airport, feeling the rush of anticipation fill her chest. She was traveling alone, which made the adventure feel even more exhilarating. Boarding the plane, she found her seat by the window and gazed out at the runway, watching as the aircraft took off into the clouds. The flight was long, but her excitement kept her awake. She watched movies, listened to podcasts, and skimmed through a guidebook on Italy. The flight attendants served pasta and wine, and she couldn't help but feel that this was a small preview of what awaited her in Rome. Finally, after hours in the air, the plane touched down at Leonardo da Vinci International Airport. She was officially in Italy. Chapter 4. First impressions of Rome. Stepping out of the airport into the warm Roman air, Sarah was overwhelmed with a sense of history everywhere she looked. There were buildings that had stood for centuries. She hailed a cab to her hotel, which was located near the heart of the city. The drive through Rome was like a scene from a movie, vibrant, chaotic, and utterly charming. She checked into her hotel, a charming little place with ivy crawling up the stone walls. The room had tall windows that looked out over a quiet cobbled street. After settling in, Sarah ventured out for a walk. Her first stop was the Spanish Steps. The sight of them, packed with tourists and locals, filled her with awe. She climbed the stairs, taking in the view of the Piazza di Spagna below. That evening, she found a small trattoria and dined on the most delicious pasta she had ever tasted. Spaghetti alla carbonara. The flavors were so rich, so fresh, that it felt like the perfect introduction to Italian cuisine. Chapter 5. The Colosseum and Roman ruins. The next morning, Sarah was up early. She had scheduled a guided tour of the Colosseum. Standing before the grand amphitheater, she felt as though she had stepped back in time. The structure, so iconic and yet so weathered, had witnessed the blood, sweat, and glory of ancient battles. Her guide, an enthusiastic woman named Lucia, led her through the ruins, explaining the history of the gladiators, the emperors, and the incredible feats that had taken place. In the arena, Sarah couldn't help but imagine the roar of the crowds as fighters faced off in the epic contests. After the Colosseum, Lucia took her to the Roman Forum, the heart of ancient Rome, and the Palatine Hill. The ruins were scattered with remnants of temples, markets, and grand halls, each stone whispering stories of a long-lost civilization. That night, Sarah wandered through the cobblestone streets, grabbing gelato and watching the sunset over the Tiber River. Everything felt surreal, like she was living inside a painting. Chapter 6. The Vatican and St. Peter's Basilica. No trip to Rome would be complete without a visit to the Vatican. Sarah woke up early to join a tour of St. Peter's Basilica and the Vatican museums. The line outside the museum was long, but the anticipation made it all the more exciting. Inside the Vatican museums, she was stunned by the vastness of the collection: sculptures, paintings, and artifacts from every corner of the ancient world. But the highlight of the visit was Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. As she stood beneath the famous ceiling, with its divine depictions of biblical scenes, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of awe. It was as if she was standing in the presence of something sacred. Next, she visited St. Peter's Basilica. The sheer scale of the church took her breath away. The marble floors, the towering columns, the intricate mosaics. It was a place of reverence and beauty. Sarah even lit a candle for her family in one of the side chapels. Chapter 7. Florence, a city of art and romance. After 4 days in Rome, Sarah took a train to Florence, the birthplace of the Renaissance. The journey through the Tuscan countryside was breathtaking. Rolling hills dotted with cypress trees stretched out as far as the eye could see. Florence was smaller than Rome, but equally as beautiful. The Arno River flowed through the city, and the famous Ponte Vecchio Bridge spanned across it, lined with shops selling jewelry and art. Sarah spent her days visiting museums, gazing at masterpieces like Botticelli's Asterisk, the Birth of Venus Asterisk in the Uffizi Gallery, and Michelangelo's Asterisk David Asterisk in the Accademia. She also walked through the stunning Duomo, marveling at the cathedral's intricate architecture. One evening, she sat on a bench overlooking the river, watching the sunset turn the buildings golden. The entire city seemed to glow in the soft evening light. Chapter 8. Venice, the city of canal. Next, Sarah boarded another train, this time to Venice. As soon as she stepped off the train, she was greeted by the distinctive sound of gondolas gliding through the canals. The air was damp, and the scent of the sea mingled with the scent of freshly baked pastries. Venice was a maze of narrow streets and waterways, with vibrant buildings leaning slightly toward each other as if whispering secrets. Sarah took a gondola ride, her gondolier serenading her with a traditional song as they floated under bridges and past grand palaces. She explored the iconic Piazza San Marco, with its towering basilica and grand bell tower. She also visited the Rialto Market, where fresh seafood and colorful produce were sold under striped awnings. That evening, she dined on risotto and Venetian seafood, savoring every bite as she watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting a pink glow over the water. Chapter 9. The Amalfi Coast, sun, sea, and serenity. After Venice, Sarah was ready to relax. She took a flight to Naples and then a scenic drive down to the Amalfi Coast. The coastline was nothing short of spectacular. Cliffs rose steeply from the sea, dotted with colorful villages. She stayed in Positano, a picturesque town known for its steep streets, cascading flowers, and stunning views of the Mediterranean, Sarah spent her days lounging on the beach, sipping limoncello and exploring nearby towns like Ravello and Amalfi. The relaxed pace of life on the coast was the perfect way to wind down after her whirlwind tour of Italy. One day, she hiked up to a small chapel that overlooked the entire coast. The view was so beautiful. It almost felt like a dream. The sun, the sea, the mountains, all of it was so perfect. Chapter 10. The return home. Eventually, Sarah had to say goodbye to Italy. She boarded a flight back home, her heart full of memories. The vacation had been everything she had hoped for and more. She'd seen the wonders of ancient history, the masterpieces of art, and experienced a culture that made her feel like she was part of something much larger than herself. Back at her desk, Sarah smiled as she unpacked her bags. She realized that while the trip had come to an end, the experiences would stay with her forever, and next time she might just explore even more of the world. Epilogue. The next adventure. As Sarah sat down to plan her next vacation, she reflected on how travel had opened her eyes to new perspectives. She'd seen the world, but there was so much more to explore. Maybe next time it would be Japan or Greece. Wherever she went, she knew that the journey itself was just as important as the destination. Her wanderlust would never fade.